Welcome. This is According to Callus. This is episode 227, and we are going to talk, once again, Republican Party platform for the state of Texas, 2022. And we're going to cover the government and election integrity section. Here we go. Government operations, sexual harassment. We believe sexual harassment should not be tolerated. Elected and appointed officials should be held to a higher standard. Yes, but it would also be helpful if we had a good definition of what sexual harassment was or is. But nevertheless, we go. Government authority. We believe any government authority that has the ability to levy a tax, fee, or appraise property on people should be accountable to those people that pay the taxes via an electoral process from the local level to the federal level. Federal land in Texas. All federal land should be turned over to its respective state except for land specifically authorized in the Constitution, which would be military bases, federal buildings, and post offices. Ding, freaking ding. Tax-funded lobbying. We oppose the use of tax dollars to hire lobbyists or paying tax dollars to associations that lobby the legislature. I wonder, what could we be referring to there? All right. Texas Speaker of the House, House Committees, and Legislative Quorum. We oppose the use of pledge cards for a call for Republican members to caucus after each November general election determined by secret ballot, the candidate for Speaker and Speaker Pro Tem. We also call for the Republican members to vote as a unified body for their selected Speaker candidate when the legislature convenes in regular session. Texas House Standing Committee. This would be B, Part B. Texas House Standing Committee should advance a conservative grassroots agenda, not that of special interest and lobbyists. The chairman and majority of the members of key committees should support the conservative agenda. Standing committees should be chaired by the political party in majority, i.e., no Democrats currently ought to be committee chairs. All right, Part C, any legislator who purposely refuses to attend a legally scheduled session for the purpose of denying a quorum shall lose any chairmanship, vice chairmanship, and committee membership to which he or she may have been appointed. Additionally, the individual shall lose any salary for that absence period. Additionally, any individual shall pay back any earnings and cost of living allowances earned during that period. Or we could just arrest them. Caucus Priorities. This would be Plank 233. We urge the Texas Senate Republican Caucus and Texas House Republican Caucus to adopt and publish a list of legislative priorities before convening each regular session of the legislature. I'm pretty sure we already provide that for them as the Republican Party of Texas, but, if they're going to have their own priorities, as long as they actually listen to the ones that we submit to them, so be it. Caucus Priorities, so we did that. 60-day rule. We recommend that the legislature pass legislation to remove this constitutional provision that the House cannot take any action for 60 days after convening. I'm kind of curious how that came about and what that referred to. I'm going to guess that goes back to our agricultural roots, and there was to protect the rest of the state, but clearly it's being abused the other way around. Just my 2 cents, because after all, this is According to Callus, and it's almost always basically just my opinion on the actions of the day. Here we go. Plank number 235, House Calendars Committee. We call on the changes of the House rules that require the House Calendars Committee to vote on a bill within 14 days of receipt, or it is automatically put on the calendar. We also support automatic setting of a bill on the calendar within 7 days of the corresponding by 3/5 of the House members. We call for votes on each bill individually that is not set on the calendar, rather than killing a slate of bills all at once. Nice. So they can't kill everything just because they don't know. I like that. Unelected bureaucrats. We oppose the appointment of unelected bureaucrats. We support the funding and abolishing departments and agencies of the IRS, HUD, Commerce, Health and Human Services, or HHS, Labor, Interior, specifically the Bureau of Land Management, TSA, ATF, the National Labor Relations Board, FDA, CDC, FDIC, and OSHA, and any other federal agency or department that is not authorized by the Constitution. In the interim, the executive decisions by these departments and agencies must be reviewed and approved by Congress before taking effect. Funny, SCOTUS seemed to have a little something to say about this just recently, and one of the times that they got something right. So, curious to see how this plays out. Sunset Commission. We support the majority citizen-led Sunset Commission. Basically, things that are old go away. I like that too. Bond election. State and local bond election ballots should be required to include the amount of the debt currently outstanding, the current debt service payments, and current per capita obligations, the amount of new debt being proposed, estimated debt service for the new debt, and the estimated per capita burden being proposed. The bond issue must obtain 2/3 affirmative vote of at least 20% of the registered voters of the voting jurisdiction. No public funds are to be spent influencing the bond election. We oppose bundling of items on a bond election and rolling polling for bond and tax rate increase elections. Wow, we could have maybe avoided the $120 million albatross, if you will, that is in McKinney ISD's stadium, had we actually forced people to look at the cold hard facts. Just a thought. Pay-to-play endorsement slates. We oppose pay-to-play endorsement slates and urge Republican primary voters to exercise extreme caution regarding any endorsement or statement made in these slates. Slates shall include notice of the amount that was paid for the advertising of individual candidates so the voters can see that the endorsements might be contingent on a purchase of an advertisement. Of course, we've never seen that happen either. In-person election voting. In-person voting should be conducted as a single period of time, no more than 3 days, with no time gap between the first day of early voting and election day. Yes. 3 days of voting should be adequate. And if the election started on a Tuesday, if the election day is on Tuesday, and you're given 3 days, there you go. You can go Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, and then we're done. And if you didn't have time, that's on you. If you're out of town, that's on you. If you couldn't bother, that's on you. Fair elections procedures. We support the right of eligible voters to cast a ballot in each of the election once. We oppose illegal voting. Really? Illegal assistance or ineligible persons? Do we really even need to say this? All right, here we go. We support vigorous enforcement of all our election laws as written and oppose any laws, lawsuits, or judicial decisions that make voter fraud very difficult to detect, deter, or prosecute. We support photo ID, prohibition of internet voting for public office and any ballot measure. Yes. We support mail-in ballots that can be requested and only granted to those that cannot physically appear in person. Increased scrutiny of the security of the balloting by mail to include removal of Section 87.014D-1 of the Texas Election Code to require once again the full signature verification with need to rebut regardless whether the paper identification numbers are on the application of the ballot carrier envelope. Felony status for willful violations of election code and increasing penalty for voter fraud from misdemeanor back to a felony. Seems to me the Speaker of the House might have had a little something to do with that change. Just something you want to keep in mind because he has an R after his name. The constitutional authority of state legislatures in regulating voting, including disenfranchisement of convicted felons. Now, I got mixed feelings on this because if you're a convicted felon and you serve your time and you get out and you're rehabilitated and you're back in society, you ought to get your voting rights back. I'm sorry. That's just how I feel about it. Changes to appropriate sections of Texas law that would deny or cancel homestead exemptions, driver's license, and license to carry if the addresses on these documents do not match the addresses on the voter's registration. Okay. Consolidating elections to primary runoff, special called, and general election days and locations. In other words, we don't have 14 different elections in a year. Subsequently numbered and signed ballots to deter counterfeiting. Expanding the Attorney General's staff for the investigation of election crimes and restoring the power and the ability of the Attorney General to prosecute any election crimes, the ability of several lawsuits to be filed for election fraud or failure of officials to follow election code, allowing trained poll watchers from anywhere in Texas within local party or candidate approval, or with local party and candidate approval, creating a process that would allow rapid adjudication of election law violation disputes as they occur and before violations can be successfully perpetrated, withdrawing from the Electronic Registration Information Center, a.k.a. ERIC. Oh, that was a mouthful. But we're there. We're getting done. Hey. And carry on we must go. All right. Voter registration. We support restoring the integrity of voter registration rolls and reducing the voter Fraud by repealing all motor voter rolls, requiring voters to pre-register and if they have not voted in a 5-year period, requiring photo ID of all registrants, requiring proof of residency and citizenship along with voter registration application, retaining a 30-day registration deadline, requiring the list of certified deaths to be provided to the Secretary of State in order to names of deceased voters to be removed from the list of registered voters, periodic checks on the voter rolls to ensure that all currently registered voters are eligible, giving the Secretary of State enforcement authority to ensure county registrar compliance with the Secretary of State directives, revising Title 19 funding to avoid incentivizing retention of ineligible voters, and use any undedicated federal election funds received to improve the security of our online voter registration data. Apologize, still working on that frog in the throat. Here we go. Campaigning at poll sites. We encourage free speech at poll sites outside of the existing boundaries. The right to campaign, including the display of signage, we respect current state law at appropriate distance 100 feet from the polling place, shall not be infringed. City of McKinney tried that. It did not work out well for them. Voting rights. We support equal suffrage for all United States citizens of voting age. We oppose any identification of citizens by race, origin, creed, sexuality, or lifestyle choices. We oppose use of any such identification for purposes creating voting districts. We urge that the Voting Rights Act of 1965, codified and updated in 1973, be repealed and not reauthorized. Okay, there we go. I guess there must be a specific section that is particularly upsetting to somebody or something. But I think what this is saying is we no longer need the Voting Rights Act and the baggage that came along with it. And if that's the case, then okay, I get that. That makes sense. But I don't know what all the rest of the details are. Perhaps if you're a listener and you know more about this Voting Rights Act of 1965 or the updated version of 1973, you could add to the comments below and tell us what this means. On to Plank 245, the closed primary. We support protecting the integrity of the Republican primary election by requiring a closed primary system in Texas. While we welcome people to join the Republican Party who support limited government and traditional values, we oppose campaigns to get liberal Democrats to cross over and move the Republican Party to the left in the primary. Yes, I have a few stories relating to that, but those will come later on. Redistricting. We support drawing districts based on eligible voters, not pure population. We believe that districts should be geographically compact when possible. We oppose any redistricting map that is unfair to conservative candidates in the primary or the general election. Republican Party operations. We support the election of Republican county chairs by their respective county executive committees when they exist. We support removing the Republican Party of Texas from the election code, which in effect happened. All right, so that is the end of that section. So we have completed government and election integrity. Last stop is going to be national defense and foreign affairs. Stay tuned, that will be following. Let me just say, I think we're on the last section now, and I'm kind of grateful because my voice is just barely hanging in there. I'm looking forward to another little break of my voice here, hold out for another hour or so. I just want you all to understand that as much as I enjoy going through this, and I try and make it at least satisfying to listen to this language, and I also know a good number of you really could care less. But I appreciate the time that you put in to listen, to actually see what is actually written here. And I feel free to add my thoughts on it when necessary. And no document's perfect. No individual's perfect. But if we have at least a common basis of which we start, we should be able to do a lot of good things. Unfortunately, there are a lot of folks that feel the need to just fight over little tiny things. And that just seems super counterproductive in the grand scheme of things. I want people to pick their battles. I want them to know what they stand for. I want them to know why they stand for it. But something like most of this is very simple. We want the people to vote that actually can vote and are supposed to vote. And the people that ought not vote don't get involved. It seems pretty simple. Well, with that, this is episode 227, the Republican Party of Texas's platform for 2022. This section is the Government and Election Integrity section. And like, subscribe, share, all that stuff. Until then, I will see you on the other side.